Morning councillors, morning directors, ladies and gentlemen. Let's acknowledge the traditional custodians of this wonderful place we call home. They represent a human footprint in our valley dating back almost 60,000 years. For us, that's the Iwi people, and in honouring the traditional custodians, we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and those emerging. Welcome to our online audience, and welcome to members of the public gallery. I don't think we've got anybody registered to speak today, but if you're in the public gallery, just please be aware of the live streaming of council meetings notice at the top right hand corner, which says that all the audio and live is being streamed live, and the vision is being streamed live in accordance with the council's standing orders, and will be recorded as such. Right, thanks very much, councillors. Declare the meeting open. We don't have a pastor today, so let us together seek a blessing on our meeting. Lord, help us to be strong, for our community depends on us. Help us to conduct ourselves in the spirit of truth and compassion. Guide our actions to deliver fair and reasonable outcomes. Bless our officers and staff. Watch over the people of our region. Amen.
Amen.
Nobody absent on council business. No apologies. Condolences. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. Worship, I'd like to offer council's condolences to the family of Neil Alworthy. So Neil is just one of those, or he was one of those really quiet community members that if you don't have anything to do with the fishing industry in the Mackay region, you probably didn't hear of him. He just went about his business, never sought recognition, but he certainly made an impact on our community that I believe would be felt for generations to come. So Neil was born in Mackay in 1957 as son of Des and Betty Alworthy, and he grew up in Mackay with his two brothers, starting work at the age of just 10. So he was a man whose work ethic started from a very early age. He lived and worked in Mackay his whole life, apart from a short stint in New Zealand, where he moved over there to follow the love of his life, Helen. But not long after the birth of their first child, they returned to Mackay, and they've lived here ever since. Neil and Helen both had a love for fishing, and at Easter in 1988 they started their first business called Fishing World. Anyone who knows fishing in Mackay would know that business. It started out on the corner of Romeo and Shakespeare Street, and that was the beginning of their Fishing World empire. After a couple of years they moved the business straight across the road to a slightly bigger shop, and then as it kept growing in 1997 they built their own shop down at the end of Shakespeare Street, where Tackle World Mackay now resides. The shop there was open 7 days a week, sometimes up to 12 hours a day, and they were all while juggling a young family. Neil had and still has extremely loyal staff, which is really a testament to his nature as a boss. Some of his staff have been there for over 23 years. Neil was a very smart, business-minded man who was always had everyone else's interests at heart. He was respected by his customers, sales reps and the public and employees alike. And just recently, in August of this year, Neil was awarded the Pat O'Reilly Tackle World Hall of Fame Award for outstanding service to Tackle World. Unfortunately, he was too unwell to accept that in person. As I said, Neil's name is synonymous with fishing in the Mackay region. I'm sure that there's not a person in Mackay that goes fishing that doesn't know him. He supported, encouraged and fostered a love of fishing in generations of people in my community, including my own family. He participated in, there was Teach a Kid to Fish Days, every fishing event that you could imagine this man was involved in. He sponsored events over the entire time of his business and donated thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in vouchers and prizes for the endless number of people that requested those. Tackle World wasn't just his job, it was absolutely his passion. All the way to the final week of his life, Neil was still working from his hospital bed and being involved in all decisions related to the shop. Sadly, Neil battled cancer over the past 2 years, and on the 8th of September, he was taken from us on the same day that Queen Elizabeth died. And as Graham, who presented his eulogy, joked at the funeral service, he was enlisted on his journey to heaven to escort the Queen in his boat. And we're certain that he's going to be giving her some pointers on fishing, just like he did to everybody else. Neil leaves behind his beloved wife of almost 44 years, Helen, his 4 children, Andrew, Angela, Jonathan and Samantha and their partners, and his 9 grandchildren who were the absolute light of his life. So I'd like to just pass condolences onto their family.
Thanks, Councillor Hassan, well said. Any further condolences? No further condolences. Conflicts of interest? Councillor Bella.
It was recently brought to my attention that the property on the PDA, 31 Sydney Street, is owned by Breen Commercial, which is a property investment company which is owned by a direct relative of yourself. At no point of view actually declared that to any of us in meetings or briefings or made any comment, and as such I believe that you have a conflict in anything to do with the PDA, including our 11.23, and I also believe that that should be investigated by whatever appropriate external body to see whether that conflict exists, referring to the fact that that knowledge in the public would undermine public faith in any decision made.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. I am actually declaring a conflict at 11.2.3 and that's already been prepared. I did take advice on this earlier on when my son purchased a property in late 2020, and the advice was that based on other applications through the OIA in Queensland, there was no conflict at that stage. That has been challenged. Already it has been challenged, and whilst that challenge still remains unresolved, I will step out at 11.2.3. Okay. Are there further conflicts? No further conflicts? Let's move on to confirmation of the minutes. The minutes have been circulated on the meeting of the 14th of September, and they're also in this agenda. Somebody like to move that they be adopted. Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? That's carried, thank you. Business arising is just one little item that's on page 77 of the agenda. There's no mayoral minutes today. The consideration of committee reports and recommendations. First of all is the Office of the Mayor and CEO, and we've got adoption of council policies. The 3 policies there are all required either under the Crime and Misconduct Act or the Local Government Act. For those 3 policies. Are there questions? No questions. Would somebody like to move that council adopts those 3 policies? Councillor Bonaventura, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 3 policies and the purpose is to get them adopted today, as stated. The first one is the complaints against the Chief Executive Officer. This policy is a legislative requirement of the Crime and Corruption Act and outlines the way in which MRC will deal with complaints against the Chief Executive Officer, including allegations that may involve corrupt conduct. The second one, gifts and benefits. This policy is developed to provide transparency and good governance and accountability. The third one, fraud and corruption prevention. This policy and its associated corporate standard is developed to set out the organisational requirements to prevent, detect and respond to fraud and corruption. Your Worship, all 3 policies are designed to promote public confidence, accountability, integrity and transparency in the way Council deals with any allegations. These policies and their associated corporate standard are part of MAC's policy review policy, or process should I say. Happy to support them.
Thank you very much. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Confirmation, those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. 11.2.1, Development Services Monthly Review for August. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm pleased to present the Development Services Monthly Report for August. Some highlights for the month are as follows. Safety continues to be a focus of the Development Services Department with no LTIs recorded in 22-23. As always, we will continue to do everything we can to reduce incidents occurring while promoting reporting and safety culture in the department. Discussions with the state are continuing as part of the State Interest Review for proposed Major Amendment 3 of the Mackay Region Planning Scheme. The proposed amendment supports and encourages development in Finch and Youngla townships, complementing the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike project. The Mackay Regional Botanic Gardens Volunteer Heritage Gardeners planned some colourful annuals in the Heritage Garden in August. They added some veggies, including beetroots, and some Caladanus, Sylvias, cat whiskers, and spider plants to the collection. Mackay Isaac Tourism has been creating specialised day tours for recent events and conferences. This allows conference delegates to book services through the Visitor Information Centre for a range of tours across the region and leverages further economic benefits for the region from events and conferences supported through the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program. Round 2 of the Small Business Mentoring Program as part of the overall Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike project has been completed. 8 established businesses and startups successfully completed the program, and a final report from the mentors Sparrow Group has been received. As part of a tour of the region, the Swedish Sugar Shed welcomed the Governor of Queensland on 24th of August for a tour of the Sugar Shed with Professor Nimmo and Mayor Williamson. And also at the Swedish Sugar Shed, the Sugar Shed released 2 batches of Colonial Spice Rum and Sugar Shed Rum at the end of August, just in time for Harvest Day. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Mann.
So I've got a few. The first one is around safety interactions, and there was only 5 recorded for the month of August. I am aware the KPI for development services is 44 for the quarter. That means that 38 need to be completed in September. Just wondering if that's going to be achieved and where the details of the safety interactions are recorded.
The Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Details of safety interactions are recorded in control. There have been some that have come through even since I've been on leave that I haven't yet approved. And yes, we are on track to complete all safety interactions by the end of the quarter.
Councillor Mann.
Yep, so in regard to the request for maintenance work on page 138, there is 228 outstanding 6 weeks and over. So I'm just wondering if it's possible to include a table which shows month on month what's outstanding and some explanation or notes to explain what the issues are in terms of completing the request for maintenance work.
Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. We are actually looking at the moment at improving the way we present that information and looking to convert it more to a graph so we can more monitor trends over time, because the table doesn't give a full picture. The preparation of the table at the moment is manual, with someone actually pulling out those figures and populating it. So we've been doing some work at the back end to actually be able to automatically pull that information out and then graphically display it. We weren't able to have that all ready for this meeting, but we will have it ready for the next monthly report. So I think that'll help. Right now, we're sort of at, Parks is a big program and it's very public facing, and we always have a regular amount of customer requests that come through. So what we're seeing at the moment is consistent with, I guess, what we would consider baseline customer requests for the program. Nothing of concern. It's just, yeah, we do need to work out a better way of presenting that data. So we are working on that at the moment.
One more. So Council was a major sponsor of Mackay at Split Spaces in August, and given that, is it possible to understand why an invitation wasn't extended to all councillors to attend?
Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Council did sponsor Mackay, and in the special conditions of the agreement, there was a requirement that they had to invite the Mayor and councillors to any open sponsored events. It's one of those things where we leave that to the funding recipient or Split Spaces to actually issue that invitation. Generally, that's how it occurs. It's not for us to then coordinate the invitation on their behalf. For whatever reason, they didn't do that and we didn't pick it up. So that's happened here, unfortunately.
Further questions? Councillor Bella.
My question relates to when we sponsor an event or a conference in the region, do we check that functions held during that period are actually held at venues that have appropriate approvals by council? And do you think it's appropriate that we should sponsor things that are held at unapproved venues?
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Generally, we work closely with event organisers in the region, and in that way, we'll make sure that we're pointing them in the right direction in terms of venues. There have been instances where we picked up that there might be an issue with a venue and assisted in steering them to a venue that is appropriately approved. I'm not aware of any, that's not to say there aren't elements of the events, like if we're talking a conference, they might be having different parts of that conference where we're not involved in the organisation, that might be held in a place that we don't have any control over, but I'm not sure that we've sort of come across it as being a big issue.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just on page 142 under our economic indicators, the quarterly report, we are still missing the March indicators for residential lots acquired, for lots approved. Does the director have any idea when this is coming? It's just a long way back now. We're already in September nearly.
Yes.
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So it did actually come, it has come through since the stats for this report were pulled together in late August. There's a bit of lead time in pulling together the stats, and so it has actually come through since it was last checked. It was 110 lots, just for everyone's information. So that will be updated for the next monthly report.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor England.
Your Worship, just going back to Councillor Mann's question, I mean, this to me, in my views, happened more than a few times recently. So what do we?
Which one was that?
In reference to the councillors not getting invitations. So what's the plan?
CEO.
Thank you, Worship. We've been trying to be very conscious of extending invitations to everything that comes across any of the directors on my desk. So if there's examples recently, the directors explained what's happened in this instance with the split spaces Mackay. But if there are other examples, if you can share them with me, I can try and understand why it may have fallen over in other cases. But I thought recently we've been paying particular attention to it, and I wasn't aware there were any other instances of that occurring.
I can use the one behind the RADIF grant that was used for the wall at the back of that 9th lane or whatever it was. That was a last minute thing. And this one, and I believe there's one other one which I can't recollect right now. So
Keswick Island was there.
yeah, so there's 3. So that can't happen in my view. Particularly if some councillors are getting it and others aren't. It's not a good look. So I wonder what we might do about that.
I think you are paying attention to.
We are certainly trying to. We will review those particular instances and try and understand what we could have done differently. But all I can offer now is apologies, and we will try and do better with it.
Okay, thanks, Worship. Sorry.
Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
On a similar line, Your Worship, and it's, could I just ask if the CEO has received invitations for the police Memorial Day, which is on both this evening, and then again tomorrow morning with the march to the church. Has that come through to council at all?
I've received personal invitation, but generally it comes through. Okay, so there you go.
Received anything?
So generally that happens. So I get an invitation, but there has in years gone by invitations to the CEO and elected members there.
Yeah, I just feel it's important that elected members are there where
Absolutely.
possible at that event. But yeah, so we should look into that as well.
All right. I'll do that. Further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Townsend moves. Seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Worship. The report by our director was quite extensive, so I just thought I would focus on what I got out of the report. August provided a great number of opportunities to showcase our region as a leading tourism and events destination, as well as showcase new business and investment opportunities within our region. Specialised day tours for delegates from recent events and conferences held in Mackay enjoyed a range of tours across the region with positive feedback being received. Confirmation that the Gold Coast Suns team would be playing at the Great Barrier Reef Arena on the 17th of September saw a lot of planning of activities and tours being put into place to showcase all Mackay has to offer. Delegates from the Suns executives and corporate partners would enjoy a tour of Mackay Waterfront Riverside Link project, Wildcat Mackay Harbour Cruise and a visit to the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Trails project site at Finch Hatton. These site tours would all highlight the ample opportunities for new business and investments and could not help but impress and highlight the viability and soundness of their investment dollars into this region. And what a great day for the football. I attended the game on the day and thoroughly enjoyed the positive vibe and support for the Suns. And of course, a 14-point win over St Kilda just made the day even better. It was also great to see that our council's Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, plus representatives from Great Barrier Reef Arena travelling to Melbourne for meetings with AFL and cricket organisations. This was an excellent opportunity to show off our elite new sporting facilities to these groups, and I look forward to seeing many more sporting events coming to our region in the coming year. Great outcome for our sporting enthusiasts, but also great for our local economy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Just one point, Your Worship, just in relation to our request for maintenance work. And I know I've often spoke on this when we've been in a very bad situation. But today it's good to read that for the month for mowing and weed maintenance, we received 14 requests. We actioned 45, and our outstanding for 6 weeks and over is now down at a very low 37. As opposed to a few months ago, it was in the hundreds. So thank you to the staff for the effort they're putting in. So hopefully we can keep on top of it as we head into the wet season.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. 2.2, the change application for reconfiguring a lot. One rural lot into 3 lots. Lot 3 at Mackay Barry Road, the Leap. Any questions? No, not speaking. No. Are there any questions around this? Would so-
I'd like to highlight that I'd like to move an alternate motion, please.
So Councillor May has circulated an alternate recommendation in the circumstances of the refusal of the documentation going with that. So is there anybody prepared to move this first motion? Anybody prepared to move? I'm happy to accept an alternative motion then. Councillor May. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hassan? Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Council's had a number of briefings. I believe some councillors have had site visits out to the site as well. So I'd just like to move this alternate motion that in accordance with section 254H of the Local Government Regulations 2012, the following are recorded as reasons in support of a decision made at a local government meeting inconsistent with the recommendation or advice given to the local government by an advisor of the local government. The subject site has never met the 100 hectare minimum lot size requirement for the rural zone. Supporting this change application minor, there would be no additional lots requirements for infrastructure. There is no additional lots being created, and the lots are situated close to an already established rural lifestyle node. The agricultural use of these lots is already restricted by the following overlay codes. So the biodiversity overlay code, the subject site transfers by a mapped waterway, referred to in the attachment D of the planning scheme overlay mapping. The waterway flows from the high point at the eastern end of the subject site through lot 21, under Mackay Road and across lot 3, discharging to the west. The existing 1988 subdivision approval is already inconsistent with the development outcomes of this code, and it increased the number of lots encroaching on the waterway, and the proposed change application minor to be approval does not change this inconsistency. The bushfire hazard overlay code, the subject site is impacted by bushfire hazard overlay mapping, referred to again attachment D of the planning scheme overlay mapping. Specifically, lot 21 on the eastern side of Mackay Road is impacted by the buffer area of the bushfire hazard, while lot 3 on the western side of the road is impacted by a high bushfire hazard area. The existing 1988 subdivision approval created 2 lots within the bushfire hazard and buffer areas. The proposed change application minor relates only to the deletion of the requirement of the lots to be held in different ownership. Lot 21 already has an existing dwelling house, and there is land on lot 3 to build a dwelling house outside that bushfire hazard area. The landscape character and image corridor overlay code. The subject site is impacted by the overlay mapping, refer to again attachment D. Specifically, lot 21 to the west of the Marridu-Yarrapaki Road is partly identified as having landscape character. The proposal to change the existing approval does not materially impact on the existing landscape character of the rural area and is therefore consistent with the relevant development outcomes of that overlay code. The landslide hazard and overlay code. The subject site is impacted by the landslide hazard overlay mapping, again refer to attachment D. Specifically, lot 21 to the west of Marridu-Yarrapaki Road is partly identified as being prone to landslide hazards along its western boundary, and as in the northern half of lot 3 across the road. Lot 21 already has an existing dwelling house, and there is enough land on lot 3 to site a dwelling house that is free of the landslide hazard area. So further that, council approved the change application minor to the existing 1 rural lot into 3 rural lot subdivisions. I won't read out all of the numbers. Approved by the Pioneer Shire on the 16th of 1998 over a former lot 1 registered plan 722431. And the approval will delete the original condition requiring the tiring of the lots via the local government agreement and allow for the extinguishment of the existing covenant tying lot 21 and lot 3 together.
Thank you, Councillor May. Speaker against? You're speaking against? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. This is a very, very complex issue that's brought before us, and there is a lot of, different parts to this that we have to consider. But at the end of the day, I've taken a very strong stance, quite often in regarding the loss of GQAL, large or small, and it's important to me. So as such, I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Speaker Ford.
Worship, could I ask a question first, just in relation to 3 lots? Can the director please explain to me the 3 lots? I thought it was 2 lots.
Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. There's an existing approval, so the old approval was for the 3 lots, but what the practical effect of the change here is to split off a lot. It's because this it's not a application to reconfigure, it's 1 into 2. It's actually changing the old approval.
But there's still only 2 titles.
That the outcome is to untie the 2 lots to create the 2 separate 2 lots. There's currently 2 titles, but it's to enable those 2 lots to be sold in separate ownership. Yeah.
Thank you.
Speaker Ford. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? Do you wish to exercise any right of reply? Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Bella and Councillor Jones recording against. Motion is carried. 11.2.3 is the Mackay Waterfront PDA Development Scheme Proposed Amendment number 1. I have declared an interest in this. My interest is, have you got that down? Okay, there's my interest. Already pre-prepared. Thank you very much. I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to run this.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just wait till the Mayor leaves the room. So 11.23 is the Waterfront PDA Development Scheme Proposed Amendment number 1 to decide to amend the PDA Development Scheme. I'll hand over to the Director for some comments there.
Yes, thank you, Worship. With any planning document that we have, land use planning document, it's important that we review it regularly to make sure that it's up to date and it's a living document. So it's timely that we undertake a review of the PDA development scheme. So the proposed amendments are not significant in terms of changing council policy, and council was briefed in July on the proposed amendments, but essentially the amendments are largely around improving workability, making some changes to make the PDA development scheme consistent with the Mackay Regional Council Planning Scheme, so there's consistency. Bring certain things up to date, around breweries and other uses that have sort of been emerging in the time since the development scheme was first put in place, and essentially just sort of administrative amendments around repetition, redundant content. So that's just a brief summary of the amendments, and so this really the purpose of this report is to get endorsement from council to get this process underway.
Is there any questions for the Director?
somebody be prepared to move as per the recommendation? Councillor Bonaventura, seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Bonaventura?
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, we've had briefings on this and it's clear that the PDA development scheme requires an amendment to ensure that the identified outstanding matters in many areas of the development scheme are addressed. By doing this, the PDA development scheme will remain workable, contemporary and fit for purpose. The risk of not doing this leaves us in a position where the development scheme does not appropriately consider the state interest policies of the state planning policy. It also limits our ability to attract emerging industries like breweries and distilleries and to establish the appropriate locations within the PDA. Happy to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bonaventura. Any speakers against first? Any other speakers? Councillor Green? Thank you.
Yes, just reiterating the Director and Councillor Bonaventura's comments. This really does just keep it consistent with the planning scheme. Having a read through, it makes it much clearer, contemporises it for what we're looking for and who we're attracting into this space to ensure that it fits the vision of council. So it's yeah, I do support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Any other speakers? Can I just say a big congratulations to the team, as there's an enormous amount of work has gone into the amendment. They're not easy things to work through, and as you see from the document, there has been a whole lot of work done in that space. So if we can just congratulate our team. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Nobody's against? That's carried. Can we just get the mayor back in, if that's okay?
So let's move on, councillors, to the ECR reports for the month of August. First of all, transport and drainage. Acting Director.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to present the report for transport and drainage activities for the month of August 2022. Just talk about some notable items that occurred during the period. So during August we had 2 safety interactions completed and 5 safety inspections completed. There were 12 safety incidents recorded during August 2022. Notably, these 8 relate to asset damage for council assets, 2 for muscular stress injuries for staff members and 2 contractor incidents. Also, during the period, we trialled combined teams for open drainage maintenance. The completion of that trial has identified that we probably weren't going to see significant operational efficiency, so we'll be looking to maintain separate drainage teams for the north and south. During that period as well, we've also welcomed our new manager of civil operations. So started on with council on Monday the 5th of September. I'd like to put on note my thanks and appreciation to staff within civil operations, a number of whom have either acted in the manager role or stepped up into other roles to provide support. From an asset management perspective, we've still got the ongoing asset management operating model review project. So the consultants have delivered a draft report that will be considered by ELT in October. The report looks at the Institute of Asset Management framework and trying to align council and how we provide asset management functions and services in alignment with a recognised framework, and also looks at how our peers are providing asset management services. So looking at how other councils are doing asset management, that's included Cairns, Townsville and Sunshine Coast in Queensland, as well as a couple of other councils in WA. Probably the only other outstanding item I'd like to note there for asset management is we are continuing to carry vacancies, but pleasingly the number of outstanding work orders and work requests sitting in the team have decreased for the last couple of months, so there's been some traction in that space. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Acting Director. Questions for the Acting Director? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Hands go up everywhere. The Acting Director's already mentioned a little bit about the combined effort that was made with the open drainage maintenance, and that was a question that I had around, I was wanting to know how we thought that it could actually work. Everybody, you know, there was obviously an efficiency there that we thought that we could get, but then at the end it hasn't worked out. I'm just curious to have a little bit of information around that, and then I have one more question.
Acting Director.
Yeah, thanks, Bishop. I suppose the intent, Council, of the combined teams was to try and get improved efficiencies, basically to cover staff absenteeism, so through either RDOs, leave, unplanned leave, and also to try and maximise utilisation of plant. So we looked at the northern drainage area to start with, and what was found there, I suppose, was we were able to optimise plant use more effectively, but in the southern drainage area, given smaller drainage sections, the use of plant is not going to be as effective because some of the larger plant just wouldn't be suitable for those drainage areas. So we sort of found that both the effect of plant utilisation, although improved in one area, would be reduced in the other. And with the there were a couple of minor weather events, but we also found from a timing perspective that typically the cycle for maintenance on the northern side is 12 to 14 weeks. During the trial period, I think we came in about 13 to 14 weeks, so there wasn't a notable improvement. So I think, and probably feedback from some of the staff as well, was that they hadn't observed any significant improvement.
Okay. And the second question, Your Worship, was as we move towards the wettest part of the year, and our staff are already working hard at cleaning out the drains, I see that we have special drainage maintenance planned for a number of places that are requiring some vegetation removal permits, and it says in the report that they'll be completed in the next few days, like it's saying the end of the month. So I'm just wondering how we're tracking with that.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, thanks, Bishop. So there will be one outstanding item still at the end of the month. So Wilson Drain from Beach. So we had commenced works there in early September. However, due to some concerns from the adjacent property owner about whether clearing was happening within the easement, we've taken that away, had a look, have confirmed that we are clearing the right location and provided advice back to the property owner. So we'll be completing those works in October over about a 10-day period.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Mann.
Yep, so I've got two. There were, in terms of safety, there was 5 incidents involving street sweepers, and I do note that one was a public member. Is there any further training required for the operators? That's all I want to know, just whether there's further training or it's a different issue.
Thanks, Bishop. So with those, we have gone and had a look, Councillor, and so of those 5 incidents, 4 relate to a single operator. So talking to the team, it does sound as though more than a training issue, it's behavioural issues with that individual. So we will be having discussions about performance, duty of care and work they're completing, probably more so than providing additional training.
And just in regard to the heavy patching program of works, it's been identified that road repairs for the water network need to be managed through an outside contractor, and I just wondered if there's any indication how long they'll have outside contractors doing that work.
Thanks, Bishop. So at the moment, the operations team have indicated they should have the heavy patching works completed sort of November, early December. So in the meantime, the water networks team will make use of the contractor. We do have a contractor available. Only the one is interested in doing the small scale patch repairs we look at. So there is going to be some operational impact for water networks. We think there may be some budgetary impact, but we want to get some data in first to understand what that looks like. But barring major weather issues, I think we should be back to normal operations at December.
Okay. Councillor Bella.
2 questions, one's only a quickie. As referenced by Councillor Mann, member of the public, but what does the actual NSM stand for?
Non-staff member.
Gotcha. Now, the other issue, and I've actually spoken on this before in previous term, Telstra cable while degrassing drain. A little bit of a personal history with this, with Telstra cables being left uncovered for great lengths of time. Firstly, I'd like to know is, well, obviously if it was there while you're degrassing a drain, it's been there for quite a while. I hope we didn't have to pay for repair of that cable. Telstra has a habit of leaving those cables, and to be honest, I see them as basically a bit of a safety issue, in that a cable there, someone walking through a drain full of grass, hits a cable like that, can actually hurt themselves quite severely. I'd like to know if we know, was it a long term, has this cable been laying there long term? Has Telstra in any way undertaken to deal with this cable in the appropriate fashion? Because it's unfair on whoever's serviced by this cable that it's left in that. And what steps are we going to take? You know, do we have these cables laying around? I personally, as I said, I know of a couple. How do we fix this?
Thanks, Richard. Probably answer that question in a couple of parts. I think we'll have to take some of that on notice, but probably take your point, Councillor. a lot of the older cable infrastructure from Telstra, it doesn't comply with their own specifications around minimum cover. We do have some that they are supposed to be 600 mil minimum cover. Some are much less than that, or even on surface, as noted. Probably the other thing that occurs is, we are a member of Was Dog Before You Dig, Now Before You Dig Australia, so the team complete Before You Dig requests prior to commencing the works. Where Telstra infrastructure is noted on this, and we're able to sort of take due care. Often a lot of their older infrastructure is not appropriately signed on plans, and probably the other thing that we're aware of occurring is often they have abandoned infrastructure that hasn't been properly decommissioned or removed, or even flagged as not in use. So I suppose I'll take on notice what we can do to address that with them, but no, there are issues.
Thank you. Councillor Singleton.
Yeah, no, Your Worship, I had two questions. One was street sweeper, and the other was a Telstra cable. So
All right, okay.
maybe both
Answered.
answered.
Thank you. Councillor May.
I'm not sure you might need to take this on notice, but our Transport and Main Roads maintenance contract that we have with them in regards to repairs to state-controlled roads, does that get reported? Do we do any sort of reporting internally, or to the council on those, that work that's carried out? And the second part of the question is, who makes the assessment on those roads that the maintenance work needs to be undertaken?
So that's the first part of the second part, we do have a service level agreement in place with TMR that specifies how we undertake maintenance and intervention points. I can provide further detail on that. We'll have to take on notice.
Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
I do feel for the acting director, he's been getting quite a few questions. I have two actually. On page 383 in relation to the open drain maintenance as well, just that Paget Street drain that's been opened and widened, I note that 300 to 400 mil of silt was removed. So the question is, can you give me some idea how come we've had 300 to 400 mil of silt? And how do we decide that there was 300 mil of silt? Was it taken from original levels or just local knowledge? What was the guideline to come up with that number?
Director.
Yes, Your Worship. So in terms of understanding the quantum of or volume of silt that's been deposited, that has been determined from design plans for the drain we had on record. So we've used that to sort of determine the amount of silt that's been deposited. In terms of what's the root cause for that, I can't provide a response at this point. Probably one thing that the team have identified and can come back with is, as part of our normal maintenance cycles, we are going to start trying to profile and understand how much silt's deposited as we're going through and doing cleanup. So if we identify particular catchments that have a much higher amount of silt getting deposited, we can actually go back up and investigate the catchment to what the cause was.
Okay. So that leads to the second question. How many years has it taken, or how many years since it was last cleaned, I suppose would be good, and has the results of this desilting, will that give rise to increasing the frequency of our desilting in drains such as that?
Yes, Director.
I'll have to take that question on notice.
All right. Further questions? You might have got a heck of a lot of questions, Acting Director, but you handled them expertly well. Thanks very much. If there's no further questions, would somebody like to move the adoption of the ECI Transport and Drainage? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Just one more to say that while we've got these drains that are required to improve the flow and capacity in Paget Street, this is one thing that I picked out of the report, and I believe those works are still in progress. I am really pleased to see that the cod hole is completed, and thank you to all of the staff that are working really hard at making sure that our region and our drainage is up to scratch, ready for the wet season. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Mann, speaking for.
Yes, I am speaking for, yeah. So I just wanted to touch on safety, and it was fantastic to see there was no LTIs. And even though there was 12 incidents recorded, given the high number of vacancies across council and the pressure on people to get the job done, I just hope that everybody continues to try and work safely for themselves and for their fellow workers as well. We noted in the budget we recorded under budget spend in areas like seal road maintenance, main roads maintenance and drainage maintenance, and that's predominantly due to large number of vacancies. given the approaching wet season and that we might expect higher than usual rain, in my opinion, it'd be good to put any resources to drainage maintenance that we could, and I'm sure that's already well in hand. I did note too, along with the usual high number of signage work orders completed, that there was a lot of illegal dumping, and there was also 20 work orders for subsidence or culvert repairs. So the illegal dumping is very disappointing, and in my opinion there's no need for it, so I would just ask people to be mindful that there is facilities that they can take their unwanted rubbish to. And I thank the Acting Director for his report. It was very comprehensive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manders. Other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for.
I'd like to make mention of two things. The open drain maintenance, I actually am quite heartened to see the comment regarding widening the lot of the drains to allow a tractor and slasher rather than just a mower. Having an experience with both, the mower's much more easy to bog. And it's not just getting it out, it's the people that are involved in getting it out. It takes a number of runs, tractor. I think that's an efficiency that's, yeah, I'm very pleased with that. The other thing, a couple of months ago, the grading crews were down our way. I noticed that you've retained the external grading contractors. My comment there is a number of my neighbours remarked to me, three in fact, close neighbours, and they said exactly what I was saying, that the actual grader operator that did the work, you know, a couple of years ago we had the formation done, it was beautifully done, a lot better than it's done previously. It's been a while since they've been back because the road's held up, but it got to the stage they turned up. The guy on the grader did a job like a lot of us have never seen before. It was the best bush grade I've seen for a long time. It not only cleared that drain, but improved sight lines, which is an issue down on some of those narrow roads we've got. And my congratulations from basically quite a number of people in our area are quite heartfelt. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. The next TCI report is the report for waste services. Director. Thanks, Richard.
Present the August 2022 waste services report. So significant items for the period. So 3 safety incidents were recorded, all relating to actions, I suppose, by customers in terms of disposing of waste. In terms of tonnages received at Hogan's Pocket Landfill, we noticed an uptick of about 5% from July through to August. During the last period, we had the Clean Up Mackay region event. So we had 9 different sites hold events from Plain Creek area through to Grass Tree Beach, and a number in and around the city itself. So it's quite heartening. During the month, we had 628 tonnes of green waste received, which was higher than the previous month. We also had around 240 tonnes of material sold at the Incredible Tip Shop. The redemption rate for vouchers is down slightly this period compared to the corresponding period last year at about 23.1%, but still consistent with, I suppose, generally consistent with what we see across the last several years. We had 2 regional waste planning workshops held during the month. This is in response to state government funding for a Mackay with Sunday Isaac region waste strategy. So with that, we had an exception workshop, and then this terminology they've used, investment logic map, which I suppose is looking at what are the options for regionalisation of some waste activities. There'll be further workshops held in the coming months. There was a LawMac meeting held in Moranbah late in August, and the manager of waste services attended. Probably the other exciting item is we've actually had a new waste services coordinator commence in late August. So that was a vacancy we've been carrying for a number of months. So hoping that will reduce the workload on some of the team. Although as an internal applicant moving from another program, we've prepared to pay more. Anyway, happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Acting Director. Questions for the Acting Director, Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Worship. Look, reading these reports sometimes late at night, you can be a bit brain fuzzy, and so I'm not necessarily going to be great on these numbers, but I am a little bit confused. So page 400 talks about the bin lifts, and I'm trying to understand what I think may be discrepancies. So in 1 month, I've gone to the whole, well, we've got 52,000 rateable properties in our region. And if I add up that we all have a general waste and we all have a, recyclable bin, and then work out what that came up with, I came up with 312,000 lifts. But in the report it says the contractors have only completed 284,000 lifts, so that's a difference of 28,000 lifts. But it says there are only 34 years missed for the month. So I'm just a little bit confused and matching the numbers. I could have it totally wrong, and I don't expect you to answer it right now.
Director.
Yeah, thanks, Bishop. Look, I can provide some response to Councillor Jones. So, looking at the data, I've gone back and had a chat to the team. So, a couple of comments I would make. So, not all rateable properties within the region have an active in-service. So, we will have some vacant blocks that may not have a service, or where you've got a property owner that may own 2 or 3 adjoining blocks, they will typically only have 1 service rather than multiple services. So, we do get a bit of variation there. Probably the other thing as well is there's some rural properties that we're not able to service, either due to the distance from service road or issues with JJ's Richard's trucks being able to safely access the property to execute the lift and move around. And then probably the other thing that's come out during some bin audit activities we do is that not every resident puts their bin out every week or every fortnight. Some will only put them out when they actually have something to put out, I suppose.
Thank you. Councillor Bella.
I actually have a comment which may elaborate a little for Councillor Jones. We have a number of elderly people living in rural areas that have to move their bins quite a distance to get to the pickup point because they are physically unable to do so. Many of them just stopped using bins as such, not putting bins out, and get family and friends and whatever to actually take stuff straight to the dump. I've spoken about this on many occasions, that I believe in that situation we should actually, as we have done for the people of Finch Hatton Gorge, put a bin bank in where those people can drive past and drop in and not require them to at times move their bins in excess of 1 kilometre. You know, a 75-year-old woman should not be required to move a bin that we have onto the back of a ute and then manhandle it off. I feel that it's something we really should look at, and last time I looked at it I received any number of reasons why we shouldn't do it rather than manners in which we should. So I hope that clears up.
Thanks, Councillor Bell.
I'm still short of 20.
Are there further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Townsend moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor Townsend.
That's a turn up for the books, isn't it?
Well,
Recycling and waste must start with education, and a good place for this education is to commence with our youth. Therefore, it was great to see our War on Waste style bin audits occur over the month of August, with 6 primary schools across the region being audited. Completing a bin audit is a powerful lesson, as it shows our students the reality of waste and what habits they personally need to change. 310 students learnt a great lesson on waste management during the month of August, which is extremely positive for our environment and our community. Also in August, 66 kindergarten students in Walkerston and Pioneer Valley received talks and education on waste, and 48 students from Moranny State School visited the material recovery facility at Paget. Several councillors had the opportunity to visit the material recovery facility, or MARF, on Monday, and I must acknowledge the great work our staff do out there. I was somewhat horrified though to learn of some of the objects that people believe are recyclable yet cause havoc and breakdowns to our machinery. Brass taps, hoses, chains, batteries, even lawnmowers and blocks of concrete and green waste have been dumped in bins for recycling. These are not recyclable, and I urge our community to think before placing items in their recycle bins. Another great education program for our community was a composting and worm farm workshop held at Melba House, which saw 10 people attend on the day. So I believe council is certainly doing their job to educate our community on the importance of waste and recycling within our region.
thanks, Councillor Townsend. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Green speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd like to speak to the Clean Up Mackay region event that was on recently. So Clean Up Mackay region was previously known as the Great Northern Clean Up, and it's been an annual event since 2009. So including the more localised name change, which I do thank staff for arranging, and along with the targeted clean-up sites of illegal dumping hotspots were also part of this year's strategy to make the entire event as effective as possible. So 9 clean-up sites were registered this year for the Clean Up Mackay region, from Grasstree Beach to Paget to Northern Beaches and everywhere in between. More than 3 tonnes of rubbish was collected, and this included 4 sets of stairs, 36 car tyres, 6 shopping trolleys and a car battery. So my children and I participated in the clean-up at Shoal Point, and I highly recommend this as a way of introducing our children to volunteering. I saw it as a great treasure hunt, not a rubbish clean-up, so it was a great morning. There were some eco-warriors who attended multiple clean-ups, 3 or more in some cases, and I say thank you to all of these participants and the organisers, including Council's Waste Education Officer Bruce Thompson and the Mackay Conservation Volunteers organisation for their part in this. This event goes a long way to helping keep our natural environment and our waterways clear of rubbish that would otherwise make it into the ocean. It was a great event. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to note on page 406 and make the comment that it was pleased to see that we're going to target contamination of our bins that are being contaminated with construction waste, and that we're going to be undertaking some media or education in this area. We really don't need to be filling up our landfill sites with anything that we can reuse. So I'm hoping that the community can take that on board, whoever's undertaking the wrong thing.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Councillor Bella, speaking for.
I just wish to, wish to comment on one item here. I remember speaking about it a couple of months ago. The fee waivers we give to charities. It was very pleasing to see last year that things were going very well for all except one, and I suggested that Councillor Bonaventura might, with his links with St Vincent de Paul, might be able to offer some pointers to the one that was struggling a little. I remember this from a number of years ago when many of them were exceeding their levels. So this is a bit of a success story in that I think, we've helped them quite a lot in getting their waste levels down. They've undertaken to do so, and it seems to be working. If you look at this, we're 1/6 of the way through the year. The expenditure is well under that 1/6, except for St Vinny de Paul, who appear to be actually going a little bit over their 1/6, so we might have to revisit that. But congratulations to all involved in that. I think it's great effort.
Thank you. Are there other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
I will talk to Councillor Bella after in relation to those issues. But I'd just like to say, I don't know, the acting director seemed to think dump voucher usage is down, but I personally believe it's up, because we're at 23% with 5 months in, and that's sort of over 4% per month. You add another 4%, we'll be up over 27 if September sort of follows suit. So with 1 month to go, I think we will be higher, but we'll look and see what happens next month. So if the director's right, well then I remind residents that they will expire this Friday. So if you have a chance to use them, do so, because it's a great chance to do a bit of extra clean-up, especially with the cyclone season not that far away. So yeah, so residents, they've got Thursday and Friday for the end of the month, so if they get a chance, do so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against?
It's okay. I'm for the motion.
Okay. Carried unanimously. Thank you. The last ECI report is for water for the month of August.
Thanks, George. So for water services for the August 2022 period, significant items include, so we had 2 safety interactions concluded, 4 site safety inspections concluded as well during the month. No lost time injuries recorded, 1 incident occurring in the reporting period. Overall water consumption in the Mackay urban area decreased, however increased for Marion and Marine. Typically we see a higher usage in those communities with larger block sizes, but still sitting slightly above the target of 200 litres per person per day. but at the moment, water reserves are reasonable. So we had a total of 372 work requests received for the month. This resulted in the creation of 265 work orders for water and 42 work orders relating to sewer. In the month as well, we also had the ICSM Water of Origin competition, where Mackay was pitted against Richmond Valley, who last year won Australia's best drinking water. So we happily got the medal this year. Unfortunately, with Australia's best, but we were able to beat them. Queried the competency of Tasmanian judging. We beat the best last year. As a former Tasmanian, I feel safe to say that.
Oh, you can say that, too.
Probably a couple of other things that stand out. So processing of estimates continues to be a challenge for the team. There's a high workload there, so we have gone above the KPI for the last couple of months. We are looking at trying to streamline some of the more simple requests that come in so that we can process those estimates more quickly. So it's something the team's committed to investigating, and we'll try and get some traction there. During the period, we had 7 schools had water education activities provided, so we did get more than 400 students, giving them a bit of understanding about water and wastewater. The other thing I suppose I'd note as well is water services staff have continued to, with juggling resources around the organisation, we've had a number of staff continue to act in roles outside of their comfort zone in some cases, so it's been really pleasing to see them step up to the challenge and take it on, and for the wider water services team to provide support to keep providing good services to the region. So, okay, thanks, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Acting Director. Questions for the Acting Director? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to ask, I'm always keeping a close eye on my H2O stats, and I believe that there were no registrations within a whole month. I'm just curious why we don't have that data.
Acting Director.
Yeah, thanks, Worship. They'll talk to the team. We do have I think it looks as though there was an error in the reporting. We have previously sourced that information from a couple of different parts of the business. So going back to what team, they're suggesting there were actually 84 registrations in total. So it's good that we didn't have a nil result. Probably one thing that has stood out though is that there was that error. We did have 2 different sources of information that have had a conflict. So we're going to take that away and change that. Probably the other thing we'd like to look at is changing the chart in the monthly report to actually show number of registrations as well as number of deregistrations, because that is something that does happen as people move properties. Sometimes they will deregister from one site and may or may not register for a new property.
Thank you.
Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, on my H2O, but see the water meter changes for the month was 406. I just asked the question, how come we're not using this as a marketing tool? Because as it is, as the meters are replaced, so as the data goes in the new meters, so 406 for the month, so that means next month we could have 406 new participants. So if we can use this as a marketing area for people.
Director, comment on.
Happy to consider that as an idea. I think it's something worth looking at. When we're putting out notifications about meter changeovers, there's no reason we couldn't be having a notification about that.
Okay, very good. Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to really shout out about one thing on this report, which is page 421, and that's to our staff who have approved plumbing applications. We've got timeframes to meet, as you know, Your Worship, and it tends to be around the 20 business days. But our internal target for our residential is within 5 business days. But our staff have really excelled in achieving a 2-day turnaround, and I just think that's an amazing result. And just if we can get the acting director to say thank you to the staff, a great result. That was all.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you. Well, I'll follow on from Councillor Jones because I agree in a different area, and I'd like to compliment the crews who tackle our, what area are we in there? Work orders created. We set a benchmark for this to achieve 90% each month. For July, they had 296 work orders, and not only did they achieve 92.5% for July, but they have been above that target ever since February. And I'd like the acting director, if he could pass on the congratulations for their efforts over the last 6 months. But the last point I'd like to make is just in relation to the water education sessions. And I was very pleased to hear Councillor Townsend talk about that same topic in the waste report. So that was designed for 434 students across 7 primary schools, from Dundoola in the south to Andergrove in the north, and as far up as Morani in the Pioneer Valley. And look, following on from the success of the waste program in educating children in attempt to form better habits, this education program will also reap rewards by giving young students a better understanding of what it is and what isn't good water use. This will also flow on to parents at home and help them think before they leave the tap on. So well done. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.4, Org Services, the Org Services monthly review for August, and we have an acting director here thrown in at the deep end very, very late this morning, so thank you very much, Acting Director Hildreth.
Thank you, Your Worship. So safety continues to be a focus of the department, with no new LTIs being recorded for the past 5 months, and only 1 incident being recorded in August. Some highlights from the department include customer service has introduced a concierge service within the main administration building. The concierge officers have access to self-serve kiosks and are positioned to assist and educate the community to use online services. Data is being captured to gain an understanding of the reasons that people visit council and how to monitor the effectiveness of this service. Still on customer service, the month of August saw first contact resolution at 61%, this being a significant increase from previous months. The team was able to satisfy over 50% of animal-related calls, 70% of calls relating to payment plans, 82% of calls about bins, and 93% of calls relating to race notices, without having to transfer the call. Well done, team. Customer satisfaction continues to well exceed expectations at 96%. Our Information Services Department continues to receive excellent internal customer satisfaction results, with surveys indicating that 99% of customers experience met or exceeded expectations. The fleet team continue to deliver a range of vehicles and equipment during August and are starting to see some slight relief from the supply delays. The Audit Committee met in August to review the draft financial statements. Financial statements are now being externally audited to ensure compliance with accounting standards. Rates notices were issued from a new provider with some minor issues identified and these being successfully rectified. And finally, a pilot to test the provision of employment packs electronically has been successful, and Council now provides these to new incoming staff with documentation in this format. This process supports the use of electronic acceptance, providing a greater experience for the incoming employee and the internal process. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Acting Director. Are there questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on page 448, the August vacancies, I think 179 may be our largest number. I'm not really sure, but it's quite high compared to the last few months. And I'm pleased to see that we're able to onboard 51 new employees to fill positions. But in regards to the staff separations, was the total number of separations 17, or is that only the ones that undertook the separation interview? Just wanting to know what the total resignations were.
Acting Director.
Yeah, so the table reflects all staff that have finished employment, regardless of whether they've had an interview or not.
Okay.
And the information I've been passed is the resignation total for August is the sum of those in the darker blue and teal areas on the graph, which equates to 14.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Further questions? Councillor May.
Just in relation to the employee turnover and the graph there, and we've seen a steady increase of our employee turnover rates creeping up higher and higher, but we're comparing it to data that was done in 2018, and I'm just wondering whether there's any up-to-date information that we can compare that to rather than the stats from 2018, because I'm pretty sure that they will have changed in that 4-year period.
Acting Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll have to take that one on notice.
Are there further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move then the Org Services report? Councillor Green moves. Councillor Townsend seconds. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just one comment here really around that shared services, and certainly the organisation's working very hard in the attraction and retention of staff, and great to see that the electronic employment pack pilot was very successful and that it's now going to be initiated in the business, in the organisation. So anything that we can do to make the onboarding process more streamlined and more effective is a great initiative. So thank you to the shared services team.
Thank you very much. Councillor Green, speaker against. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Townsend speaking for.
I'd just like to talk about the new concierge position that's available and has commenced in our administration building, which will assist to educate the community on how to access and use council's self-serve kiosk and online services. I see this as an invaluable asset for the more mature group within our community who fear technology and sometimes find navigating these areas quite challenging. And I put myself in that category, so I would certainly help, enjoy some assistance with these things. I'd like to finish here by congratulating Council on showing their support for Wear It Purple Day on the 26th of August. This awareness day was founded to bring awareness to teenagers who have taken their own lives due to bullying and harassment. Mackay has the unenviable record of being the 5th highest in Australia for suicide, with 32 people committing suicide each year in our region, of which a proportion are our teenagers. So the Council strives to provide a safe, inclusive and welcoming work environment, and awareness events like these ensures visibility and shows our support within the workplace.
Thanks, Councillor Townsend. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. The strategic financial report actually should be under the Office of the Mayor and CEO, but we've included it here under the work services area. Nevertheless, the CEO is going to speak to it.
Thank you, Worship. So as at the end of August, we're reporting a favourable variance of 2.9 million against the year-to-date budget, with both operating revenue and expenses tracking slightly below target. As we're only a couple of months into the new financial year though, this is likely due to forecast timing, with revenue and expense trends expected to align back with budget forecasts in coming months. Capital expenditure is also tracking slightly under year-to-date budget, with 12.7 million expended against a forecast of 13.5. There is still ongoing risk with our capital project delivery due to the current market conditions, which is being actively monitored. The Council continues to maintain a good level of cash reserves. As you can see in the graph on page 475, over the past 12 months there has been an increase in the balance of funds held in term deposits versus cash at call due to the improving interest rates on offer. This is likely to impact on Council's forecasted interest income in coming months and will be adjusted in further budget reviews if required. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, CEO. Are there questions for the CEO? No questions? I know. So we'd like to move then the adoption of the strategic financial report. Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And as we are only a couple of months in, it's nice that we are on track, particularly with the variance being 2.9 million in favour of the budget, which is fantastic. I just want to call out some of the areas of concern. And this is an ongoing problem that we have been talking about at Council for quite some time now, about the cost of Council project expenditure and the difficulties that we're having with suppliers, with the cost of those suppliers, with our tenders and our purchasing arrangements are all on the increase, which is very unfortunate. And the other important factor I think to note there is the variable and the rising Australian inflation rate, which will continue to impact us going forward. I would like to really call out and as the CEO mentioned, the favourable interest rates, but that comes at a cost. Even though we might gain future revenue out of our investments, it certainly does come at a cost. And the other thing that I'd like to highlight is the borrowings. In my recollection, since the amalgamations of the Council in 2008, we have never had a borrowings as low as approximately $66 million that's showing in the strategic financial report. And I think that's a great achievement, from 2008 to now. It was well over $100 million back in 2008, if I recall. To be able to reduce that debt over a period of time comes about by good, solid financial management and planning, and this Council, I think, has done it well. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. The other points that I wanted to pull out of the report is our revenue is reporting an unfavourable variance of 1.1 million against our year-to-date budget for the month, and our expenses reporting favourable variances. But this is due to the lack of materials and services, and again COVID impacting our businesses. As a result, we have an ongoing risk to product delivery due to the tightened labour market and elevated lead times when accessing critical components, as we all know. Mackay Regional Council's investment portfolio continues to exceed Ausbond Bank investments, it's a bit of a mouthful, and performs well against our current market indicators. Mackay Regional Council currently has 115 million in various reserves, which is anticipated to be expended over differing timeframes. But overall, we are in a good position, and I'm happy to accept this report as well, Your Worship.
Very much, Councillor Jones. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, CEO. There's no petitions today. There's no tenders. We have a notified motion to consider today, and at 14.1, the repeal of a council resolution in terms of the material change of use and nature-based tourism at that lot on the Merringcombe Drive at Freshwater Point. The notified motion has been presented by Councillor Englert and circulated as part of this agenda. And Councillor Englert, that notified motion is that Council repeals the resolution named there, resolved by Council on the 14th of September and listed below. And further, that the Council refuse the DA on the grounds of the documentations contained in this agenda item. Are you happy to move that, Councillor Englert? Is there a second? We have a second for Councillor Hassan. Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. At the last meeting, I spoke for the motion based on what I understood to be the truths of that report. Two councillors spoke against it, including yourself, and at the time I found your comments confusing. After the meeting, I talked to other councillors as to what you were on about, and I realised I'd misunderstood the report's outcomes. We've gone from 20 to 15 to 7 to 5, 5 to 7 sites, and it was lost on me in the final submission that this did not include on-site management of the operation. The picture in the report showed the building, but it had a blue box around it saying not in the DA. I misunderstood that that was not part of the DA. So I've given some reasons as to why I can't support this DA. The application does not provide on-site management and supervision of the self-contained recreational vehicle sites. Condition 27 of the officer's recommendation does not adequately ensure that the development will be undertaken in a way that prevents impacts on the environment or the rural residential amenity of the area, and the overall of the development has the potential to have an unreasonable impact on local residents. Your Worship, personally, I've had the advantage of travel around the world, and there are three things that exist at almost all of these unsupervised camping locations that I visited, and they are the mess, the stink and the noise. I've observed many times the midnight activities of people taking their toilet cassettes to the extremities of the boundary of the site to empty them in the darkness, and I've had to keep awake at some time listening to the latest acid techno music mixed with a simple acoustic guitar. So personally, these sites are problematic within their proximity to residents. Professionally, I'm appointed to this board. I'm appointed by this council to the Mackay Isaac Tourism Board. I will always champion new tourism opportunities, ones that support our communities, but not ones that could potentially undermine them. So to be clear, I support unsupervised or free low-cost camping, but I cannot agree to these unsupervised sites being surrounded by people's homes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Englert. Speaker against? Councillor Seymour speaking against.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not a RV related person. The Council's RV strategy, which will commence in October 22, should recognise these small RV parks are destinations to visit, as well as promoting this region as a barra capital and lure tourists to enjoy our coastal climate. For this to eventuate, accommodation is in short supply in coastal regions, and creating these small RV parks is a step in the right direction. Being only 1.5 k's from the boat ramp, this area of coastline is prime barra country, so why not invite people to share this experience? The council putting this rescinded motion in is on the Mackay Tourism Board, Mackay Recreational Fishing Strategy. Supporting of this rezoning application relates closely to both those groups. In the Economic Development and Tourism report in today's agenda, it mentions visitor attraction. Developing the Mackay region is a leading tourism and events destination. On the reading of that statement, RV parks would have a popular destination tourists in the region for the Mackay tourist region. When you compare this application to one in January 21, 60% of councillors voted in favour of allowing a wedding venue at Minch Point, same zoning as Freshwater Point. Conditions for Minch Point: maximum number of 150 people on site at one time, 21 vehicles on site at one time. Conditions for Freshwater Point: guests are not permitted to stay on the site any longer than three days, and vehicles only to cater for the 7 sites. So going on these conditions, Minch Point got the tick of approval and Freshwater Point still to be decided. Submitters also claim that the development of this size and scale will have an adverse impact on the privacy of the small residential and surrounding area of Freshwater Point as a result of noise, light, odour, smoke and traffic. From the outset, it should be recognised that the proposal is for a small-scale, tourist-orientated RV park. Guests that own RVs are generally families and grey nomads that enjoy the outdoors and have a healthy respect for natural environment and probably don't like loud music. So I'm not saying that I can't support this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Seymour. Speaker 4. Councillor May, speaking 4.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. As I said at the last meeting, I was conflicted between approving it and not approving this particular application. And the reason that I felt that was around the impact that it had on the community. And since having an extra couple of weeks to consider my position on this particular development application, when you think about the 7 sites and the possibility of 6 or 7 RVs, 7 at the most, being there, and there could be 6 to 8 people in each RV, it certainly becomes a rather large development rather than a small development. So you could have anything up to 42 people that are on site there with no site supervision. And I think for me, that's the part. I raised the question about the site supervision at the last meeting. And for me, that is the part that is making me change my mind. I didn't calculate those numbers. I just took the 7 sites as that was what was being proposed. But when you think about the people that could possibly be on site at any given time, it could be quite a large number. So I think that in itself and the impacts that that could have on the neighbouring properties, the community down there, I'm prepared to support this motion.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against. Speaker against, Councillor Bonaventura, speaking against.
Thank you. Councillors, can I start by saying I'm struggling to understand what has changed in the 2 weeks since we approved this. We did have a good discussion and we did approve it. I'll start again. What did we approve? We approved a material change of use to a nature-based tourism for 7 self-contained recreational vehicle sites on Lot 1, Miriam Khan Drive, Freshwater Point. Our planning scheme hasn't changed. It still says the small 7-site RV park fits the criteria for nature-based tourism. No mistakes or omissions in the previous report have been identified that would lead us to rethink the decision. And in relation to Councillor Englert, all those points were there quite clear that was the design and how it would work, and I had no problem with that and still don't. Let us consider the facts of the report. For this MCU to nature-based tourism, we have control. We have conditions like sealed internal roads. We have conditioned it to have 40 metres from the side properties. We also have 27 conditions attached to it. Now, if this was not an MCU coming to us today, the owner could clear the block. Remember, we have no controls over the Blacks Beach site when the owner did that. We would have no or little control if someone thought it would be a great spot for their kids to have a motocross track with lots of noise. And Council, I'm sure several of you have been in this position where you have had little control to assist neighbours. The site could also be used for a home-based business, covering things like animal husbandry, cropping, a roadside stall, etc., and could easily have more than several vehicles and generate noise from 6:30 to 6:30 p.m all of these as an as-of-right possibility, and there would be no need for council approval. I understand the concern from the community, and I do live in a quiet rural community, and I like it that way. And I want to thank the resident for the letter, giving their perspective and asking my thoughts if I would live next door to something like that. The answer is I would. I would have no problem, because it has that 40-metre buffer and 27 conditions. And after 10 years in this position, where I've had to explain to many residents that the motorbikes or land clearing or the glare from that great big shed is out of our control. But we need to consider the report by the staff in assessing this and how well it fits our corporate objectives. Where it clearly states in the report, under invest and work, diversified economy, and it says, we have a diversified economy that attracts new and emerging industries such as sport, tertiary education, health, tourism, agribusiness, etc. The second one, live and visit. Places and spaces it's under. We provide well-planned and designed place facilities and infrastructure that meet the needs of our residents and visitors. This proposal was assessed under the strategic framework. Because remember, councillors, the strategic framework is the entity that represents the policy intent of the planning scheme and is the area that will be used in the courts if there is a dispute. So let me read some of the points that this decision was based on. Tourism development capabilities capitalises on the region's unique natural areas, inland forests, rural landscapes, coastal areas and inlands. Staff maintain this proposed development is considered to comply in that the proposal is for tourism development in the Mackay region. The proposal provides a tourism facility that enables residents and tourists to experience the region's landscape character and environmentally important areas, and is supported by transport infrastructure and related services. Further to above, the following are relevant supporting key points from the strategic framework. Tourism opportunities for a range of activities showcasing natural assets in the region and including the mountains, forests, beaches and reefs. These form the foundation for further development of a vibrant and sustainable tourist industry that celebrates and supports the region's unique qualities. Next dot point, tourism opportunities are maximised in the region. Tourism facilities enable residents and tourists to experience the region's landscape character and environmentally important areas, and is supported by short-term accommodation, transport infrastructure and related services. Next dot point. Ecotourism facilities in natural environments are encouraged to facilitate the management and appreciation of the scenic, environmental and cultural values. 2 to go. Development protects areas of environment and cultural significance and heritage places. Natural resources are protected to meet current and future needs. Final one, rural residential development provides rural lifestyle options and does not compromise the environmental values of the landscape. Your Worship, this approval has those 27 stringent conditions, and I believe it will be of benefit to the region, in particular the Sarina region. Councillor May and Councillor Bella both know how important it is to spread our tourist appeal to the wider community, and I ask both of them to consider the benefits to the Sarina region in fuel, food and local visitation. In closing, I agree with Councillor Seymour's comments quite strongly, and I believe this would be a travesty of justice to overturn this today. Councillors, please consider voting against this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Bonamatura. Speaker 4. Are there any other speakers? Councillor England, you wishing to exercise your right of reply?
Worship, I get all that. That's why I spoke to the motion last time and voted for it. The scheme does support what I thought the application was, and that's why I voted for it. You said in your remarks you did not believe the scheme was correct for the community, and I have to agree also that even though it fits all the elements of the scheme, which is why I spoke to it and why I voted for it last time, in hindsight I made a mistake, and when you make a mistake you do what you can to make it right. So At the last meeting, we had a councillor missing. The motion would have been defeated if I had not made the error I had at that point. That's irrelevant. We're back with this now. So what has changed was asked by Councillor Bonaventura. What's changed is I've recognised my error. You know, Councillor Bonaventura mentioned the conditions. These won't be policed by us. The community itself will have to become hyper-aware and super complainatory to, I just made that up, to affect what they believe to police their own community from now on. I don't believe the application that Councillor Seymour made reference to is the same as this one. There's substantially larger distances involved. And I do disagree with the part of the report where it says in general, families and grey nomads will frequent these sites. Well, once it's known it's unsupervised, it won't be self-contained vans unless they've got to check in or there's a security system or something like that checking what's going in there. That's not going to happen. Once the word gets out this is unsupervised, it's all comers. And I say that from an understanding of as someone who has spent months and months in RVs travelling around the place, and my experience is staying at different places, knowing what happens at supervised and unsupervised places. And Councillor Seymour was correct in mentioning that I am on the fishing rec committee and on the tourism board, and yet I still can't support this.
Thanks, Councillor England. And just to wrap it up in terms of, I think Councillor Bonaventura's a travesty of justice. We have taken external legal advice on Council's ability to actually change its mind, and yes, we can at this stage because no certificate had been issued prior to, following on from the last meeting. So external legal advice is that we're at liberty to do what we are going to do if this should pass. So if there's no further speakers and it's been wrapped up by Councillor England, I'll put the motion for the repeal of the council resolution and the adoption of the new one. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, the motion has been carried. Did you get the everybody against? Thank you very much. Right, thank you. There's no public participation. Nobody's speaking in the public gallery today. Late business. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Lewis. I just want to talk about Zonta and Mackay's 30th birthday on Saturday night. We're celebrating. And as you are an honorary Zontian, I thought it was timely to speak about it today. So 30 years on, we still have 2 foundation members who have done a lot of work in raising Zonta's profile around the region, but also in fundraising so we can support other not-for-profits and other groups in our region as well. So Councillor Hassan and I are both current members and we're looking forward to the celebration on Saturday night and looking forward to many more years as a club.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Further late business. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Yesterday I participated in the Living Under the Act training. One thing that people need to know is that this is not cultural training, this is just education. What I learned was how much European settlement had controlled the lives of our First Nation and Torres Strait Islander people since colonisation. How some of this control still happens in the generation that we're all in now, and that wasn't that long ago, even as close as the 70s. And I can see more clearly now how intergenerational trauma has affected the lives of our community. My commitment out of this course was to continue with my advocacy on behalf of Indigenous brothers and sisters in our region, educate others to listen to their stories and stand in their shoes, look through their eyes. Some people may say, why can't we just move on? Education will unite, and working together we can change the future. I encourage all councillors around this table today to undertake this educational training because I got a huge amount out of it. Thank you, Worship.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Further late business. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to give a shout out to the Resource Centre of Excellence and the work that they did in attracting the STEM Punks Space 2101 program to our region last year. It's typically a 5-day program, but it was condensed to 4. This was the pilot program for this for STEM Punks Space program from Mackay. it will go global, Dubai, London, etc. We had 50 students aged year 7 to year 9 participate in the 4-day program, and it was a free program. I volunteered my time on Tuesday, and it was phenomenal to see these award-winning educators deliver this program on the day. And even more exciting was astronaut Susan Kilrain, who has had 20 hours in space. She actually came over from the States to participate in the program from Wednesday and Thursday, and some of the feedback to her, a 13-year-old girl that was at that program now wants to be an astronaut and is taking all the steps possible to achieve that pathway towards it. So that's, you know, to me that's a goosebump moment really, that you know, a program that was run in Mackay last year had that impact. And from the educators in the room at the time, they were just blown away by the level of talent watching these kids code carbon dioxide monitors to a level that even they were, you know, questioning. It was just phenomenal. So huge kudos to the Resource Centre of Excellence and Stephen Boxall for having those conversations with Michael Holmstrom of STEM Punks and bringing them here to Mackay for our kids to experience this. Next year I think they're planning to go bigger and better. We have Gilmore Technologies up in Bowen who are actually building a rocket launching site. It's not unfathomable that kids from our region can stay in this region and have a job up the road in you know, not too many years to come. So fantastic program.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Further late business? No further late business? Councillors, we have a couple of items to consider in confidential reports. Would somebody like to move that we close the meeting to the public? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor May seconds. Councillor Out, those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. We're back on. Councillors, 17.1, the appointment of a Chief Executive Officer. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 17.2, the Legal Services Monthly Report for August 22. Somebody like to move? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. 17.3, the approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for August. Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 17.4, the draft minutes of the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for their meeting on the 5th of September. Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. And 17.5, the approved concessions under the facilitating development policy in the Mackay region for August 2022. Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much, CEO and directors. I declare the meeting closed.